The New York Knicks just fired head coach Tom Thibodeau just a few days after their season ended in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The best Knicks coach of this century is now just gone. And there's a lot of different reasons for why the Knicks fired Tibbs that have already come out. They were frustrated with his lack of offensive innovation. Generally, the Knicks were seen as a very ISO-heavy team this year. They had the Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson pick and roll. They had Cat ISOs. They had Brunson ISOs. And that was pretty much everything that they did offensively, despite some complementary pieces like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges that have shown either in New York or in the past an ability to play within a more advanced offensive structure, guys that potentially should have gotten more offensive opportunities. It was just focused around those two guys, and there wasn't a whole lot of creativity offensively for the Knicks. Not to mention defensively, there was a lot of frustration on that side of the ball as well, which is supposed to be the calling card for Tom Thibodeau, and they weren't a very good defensive team this year. He seemed to be stubborn in his tactics defensively, especially as related to Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5 spot, not finding a way to get him to be able to guard effectively. And we've already gotten reports and rumors about meetings that were had throughout the season and frustrations with Cat in general on the defensive end of the floor. And Tibbs was supposed to be the guy that was going to lead the Knicks to the finals this year, and it didn't happen. Yes, Game 6 of the conference finals is really, really good. If you told Knicks fans that at the beginning of the season, they'd probably be really excited. But given the way the playoffs fell, it's very easy to see this season as a disappointment and how that could ultimately lead to the Knicks looking for a new head coach. That might seem crazy to you that this was a disappointing season for the Knicks, but there's two main reasons. One, if you look at what they were in the playoffs, it's not all that impressive. Conference finals is cool, but they were 10-8 in the playoffs, and at the end of the postseason, their point differential was plus and minus 0. They scored exactly as many points as they allowed in the postseason. They weren't dominant at any point. They were scratching out these games. They were down 15 plus in a bunch of games in the playoffs. Yes, they beat that Detroit team, but at times the Knicks did not even look like the better team in that series despite finishing it out. I felt like during the Celtics series, that was the one really good series that they played despite being down 15 plus. Once they figured some things out, at times it looked like they were out coaching the Celtics in that series because of the way that they forced them to really play offensively in this very ISO heavy scenario. They played really well defensively. That was actually a good series for them. And then they just completely fell apart against the Pacers. And ultimately, that's the reason Tibbs is no longer there, is because they couldn't quite get over that last step and get all the way to the finals. And the other main reason for him to be fired as well is because there is a lot of investment in this roster in New York. The expectations clearly, internally, organizationally, were set higher than where they ended up. Beating the Celtics is awesome, but not getting to the finals and losing to a Pacers team that I'm sure internally they feel like they are much better than is not good enough, given that you give up all these future first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. You're paying a ton of money to OG Anunoby. You just signed Jalen Brunson to an extension. You add Karl-Anthony Towns on his giant salary last offseason. You've got, theoretically, one of the best starting fives in the entire league, yet that unit can't play particularly well together. Ultimately, they decided that that was a coaching issue and that it was time to move on. And this is obviously very interesting timing. Jalen Brunson, right after the conference finals was over, said publicly that Tibbs was the guy. He publicly defended him. He thought it was laughable that someone was even asking him the question if Tibbs was the coach that they needed to lead them moving forward. And it just kind of seems like surprising head coaching firings is the new thing now in the NBA. The Grizzlies and Nuggets both fired their coaches a few days before the postseason even started. And now the Knicks, right after making the conference finals, are moving on from their guy as well. I want to go back to a statement I made in the intro that might have caught some people's attention. Tom Thibodeau is undoubtedly the best Knicks coach of this century. You can talk about the failures of the season, how the season could have gone better, what they look like in the postseason, lack of offensive and defensive innovation. You can talk about all those different things, but this franchise was completely lost when he got there. They made the playoffs in 4 of 5 seasons. They're working on a couple of straight 50-plus win seasons. When you look at the franchise history of the New York Knicks, they have been a dumpster fire for almost the entirety of this century. Since 2000, you've got a little bit of an uptick with the Carmelo Anthony team, but ultimately those weren't teams that you really thought were going to do all that much in the postseason. There's some Mike Woodson teams, some Mike D'Antoni teams, but ultimately teams that you felt like actually had a chance to win the title or compete or go to the finals. It was these Tibbs teams, and that's it. Then you got to go all the way back to like the Van Gundy teams, the Pat Riley teams, and you can say whatever you want to about Tibbs as the coach. He was the guy that was there when they finally turned things around. Yes, the front office did a lot of really good things, namely bringing in Jalen Brunson in free agency, but it was clear that Tibbs at least had something to do with turning around the culture and the mindset of this organization. And now you got to find a new guy. Right now, it seems like there's two coaches at the front of the line for this head coach opening for a couple of different reasons. One, you don't really want to go out and look for an inexperienced guy in this scenario. Normally, when you are firing someone that is as experienced as Tibbs and your team is in the situation that the Knicks are in, where you're not particularly interested in player development, you're not particularly interested in developing the young guys, you're trying to get the most out of your top 6, 7, 8 guys. Generally, you're looking for a vet. You're looking for guys that have championship experience potentially, or guys that at least have deep postseason experience. So a couple of coaches that are going to be at the top of the list, we would assume, are Mike Budenholzer, who just finished up his one-year tenure with the Phoenix Suns, Michael Malone, who just got fired by the Denver Nuggets, and Frank Vogel as well, who obviously has won a title in the past with the Lakers. Those would be the 3 guys I would look at. I think Budenholzer is probably near the bottom of the list because he literally just got fired by the Suns, and then he was previously fired by the Bucks. So going to his 3rd team in 4 years probably doesn't make a lot of sense for him. But I think Michael Malone and Frank Vogel both would make a lot of sense. Like I said, bringing some of that playoff and that championship experience, yes, Tibbs does have, but you're, in my opinion, not going to go from someone like Tibbs to some random assistant that's never been a head coach before. This is a veteran roster. This is a team that knows what they need to do, and they need someone to just lead them a little bit more in terms of innovation on both ends of the floor. And ultimately, this can absolutely be a positive thing for the New York Knicks, but I did not expect this. I did not think this was coming, and I think it's easy to argue that this was actually a mistake for the Knicks. Yes, there were disappointing parts of the roster. Yes, there were things they could have done on each end of the floor, but you were 2 wins away from the NBA Finals. Think about where the Knicks have been since 2000, and then think about the fact that they were 2 wins away from making the Finals. That's where they were with this head coach, and there's no guarantee that things are going to improve. There's no guarantee that coach is going to be able to get out of Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, and everybody else what Tibbs was able to get out of them this season. You never really know until you fire the guy, and then all of a sudden things aren't as good. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that it was a mistake, but it is absolutely a risky move to go from a coach that has been there, that knows these guys, that knows what they can and can't do, and frankly, a potentially flawed roster in terms of what he wants to do defensively at the point guard and the center spot, guys that just can't guard in Brunson and Cat. It's easy to argue that the roster was actually the issue here in New York and not Tibbs as head coach. Ultimately, only time will tell whether this was the right choice. It's very interesting to see a team make the conference finals and then fire their coach, and who they bring in is going to be certainly a topic of conversation all off season. And all of this could also potentially be leading to a different roster next season for the Knicks as well. There's already rumors about people being upset with Karl Anthony Towns and his defense, the possibility of bringing in someone like Kevin Durant. Maybe Giannis is someone that they're potentially going to be able to go out and get. We just talked about all of that in a different video, talking about the trade possibilities, the offseason possibilities for the Knicks, and maybe that will be the reason why the team improves, not so much the coach. But an incredibly interesting conversation to have around a team that just made the conference finals, and now they just fired the best coach they've had in a quarter century. And who knows, maybe they'll get it right. Maybe the new coach is exactly what they need, couple of roster tweaks, and all of a sudden we're looking at the Knicks as NBA champions this time next year, basically. But this is a crazy move to make, in my opinion.